Cold myth, you got me with a cold myth. Got me with a cold myth. I mean, it knocked me still. Out with a cold myth. With a cold myth. Every corner a satellite of humanity. Tap in. Tap in. Get yourself in. Came factor the hour limits. Gimmicks rockabye. Us to sleep. While we fight tired eyes from close. But they closing up shop. Closing up shop. And your money just blowing in the wind. The wind. Blowing and blowing in the wind. Blowing in the wind. Controlled. Blowing by regular weather. Controlled. Weather non-stand. Face to face and believe our own intentions. The revealing has started. And the sky is opening. Who's that? Who's that? Black angel wings. Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Black angel wings. Angel uplifted from darkness. Playing the bass of all solitude. Playing the bass of all solitude. Well, I was quiet for too long. I was quiet for too long. Singing your song and ain't nothing come out. Quiet. And ain't nobody rise out. Quiet. Harmonic darkness. Where were you when you first heard? Ghost in your heart. Who put it there? Watch out for the idiots who's watching. Who put it there? In the first place. Put it there. In the first place. Put you there. In the first place. In the first place. in the first place. What you doing?
Niggas, true story, the bond jobs, niggas free this. Bond jobs, nigga, the guys, niggas see this. Bond jobs, I'm on the jobs and the days, nigga, fool. Big nigga, this is the big jobs, I'm on the bars and the bed, homie, coming.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother over here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Enjoying and living life. That's about it, man. What about yourself?
Hey, man, no complaints, or whatnot, man. Just man, trying to navigate through these tech issues, man. we willing and dealing, and then
you know, in a Mercury retrograde, right? Feels like
man, it's we in a something, man. But you know what? I've been seeing a lot of people struggle streaming lately on YouTube, so it's some things going on.
Yeah,
indeed,
sure.
indeed. But you know, as usual, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. You know, shout out to all the listeners out there and whatnot. Everybody tuning in live. You know, apologies for the delay. We've been working out some little kinks and stuff like that, trying to make sure everything is right. But you know, we're getting it on point or whatnot. But you know, as usual, this episode is brought to you by the Push It Forward Podcast Network, Carlo Perusha Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Or whatnot, you know, shout out to all of them and stuff like that. And if you're interested in contributing to the show, asking questions and different things like that, and we do have exclusive episodes on Patreon for sure. Definitely check us out on Patreon. You can find all of our links and everything at Push It Forward, PUSHITFWD on Instagram, or you can just go to pushitforward.com, PUSHITFWD.com. That's where you can find everything that we got going on in reference to this podcast and the other podcasts, a part of the Push It Forward network. All right, that is the Single Dad podcast and the Plant Based with Love podcast. So definitely make sure you check those out as well. Brother Ra, how can the people get up with you?
You can hit me up via IG or Facebook. Shechem Raw is the tag, or you can hit me up via Kalapurusha Astrology at gmail.com. And yes, the website is still in the works, still being worked out. When you get somewhere and you say, you know what, we got to get back to doing it right, they do it over, and it's a process. So it is still coming, but that will be hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So it's definitely stay tuned.
Indeed, indeed. Shout out to that and whatnot. Indeed, indeed. So here we are. We're at episode 11 of season 4. We making good strides here or whatnot. We got some interesting things we want to talk about today. Since we're running a little behind schedule a little bit, I think it'd be a good idea for us to go ahead and jump in or whatnot to some introductory news, some transit things that we got going on. So what you got for us, Rob?
If you've been watching the news lately, if you've been keeping up on current events, if uh, do a pulse check and kind of see what's going on in the world today, um, you're going to be at some point hit with or alarmed with the floodings, right, that are going on. And folks, you got to understand when I mention floodings, I'm not just talking about like a flood in your hometown or it rains and we have excess water. That's a flood, right? I'm talking not biblical proportions, but definitely catastrophic proportions.
Right.
Um, in astrology, we talk about the planets as they move. It's always an as above, so below type process. So the spiritual weather kind of precedes the physical weather, and uh, in the heavens, in the sky, the spiritual weather has been really turbulent. It's been really rough for the past week. Really, we've had some challenging shifts in that one, Venus went from Cancer, right, which is a water sign. And I'm going to keep referring back to water, and you'll see why in a minute. Cancer was in a water sign. It moved over into fire sign as of the 16th of July. So that's one planet that crosses from a water sign to a fire sign. Now, as of yesterday, as of July 20th, we also had a planet crossover from a water to a fire sign. We had Mars leaving its debilitated state into moving into Leo as of yesterday. So these are two planets that cross over a very specific point in a chart. And this point or these points are called Gandanta zones. You probably heard a lot of astrologers talk about them, but not really understand what they are or kind of how to relate them to things. And
Right.
so when you begin to understand, Gandanta zones are areas of the zodiac where there's a water sign, right? And there is a break between the water sign and the fire sign. And you say, well, I thought all signs had breaks. Well, not necessarily. In this tradition, in this science, we have a system that is called the nakshatras. And the
Right.
nakshatras cover or overlap all of the signs except until it gets to the water signs, and then it stops. There's a hard stop, and then there's a hard begin at the fire sign. So between right Pisces and Aries is a Gandanta zone, and Gandanta zones are usually right around 29 degrees, right? 0 degrees, maybe 1 degree the sign. So between 29 degrees of the ending of one sign to 1 degree of the next. 28 degrees is almost Gandanta. It's borderline. But that 29th degree, 0 degree, and 1st degree are key crucial degrees between water and fire signs. And so what happens is these are called Gandanta zones. Gandanta literally means it's a knot, right? It's a knot or something that's tied that has to be what? Broken.
Broken.
And so, knots, when if you've ever had a shoestring back in the day and, you had that knot that was just so tight in there, you couldn't get it out. The only way you could get it out is through force, right? Through having something intercede and bust open that knot, right? Well, that's what those Gandanta zones do. They're knots. They're kind of like points that are where you have it's a drop off, it's a cutoff, it's a serious divide, and so it's like a wall that you have to punch through, and on the other side, whatever is behind it spills out. Well, water is what's behind it. So Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, right? Wherever Pisces ends, Aries begins, Gandanta. Cancer and Leo, Gandanta. Scorpio and Sag, Gandanta. So that means that whenever there's something coming from a water sign to a fire sign, there is a release. And so the release is the water that we're seeing. You got to understand, this is not the average type of flooding. We're talking serious, major flash floods. And take for granted, it would be different if it was one part of the world. This is all of the northern hemisphere, folks, because we're going through our summer seasons, right? That's when the rain begins to increase, like what you can say monsoon in a way. Not monsoon in the sense of winter, but in the sense of our rains, we increase our rains. So
Right.
when the rain increases in the northern hemisphere, when it's summertime, right, water is abounding. Well, we've had planets cross over Gandanta zones 2 years ago, right? Every 2 years, Mars will pass a Gandanta zone. Every 2 years. In fact, it's going to pass one in January 2022. So this happens, right? But it's not summertime in 2020 in January. It's cold. So there's no torrential rain to release, right? In the fall, right? Or whenever, when Mars crosses over Scorpio, right? It's not the summer energy. Cancer is that summertime energy. And so that is literally when we get all of our inundation, all of our water. And so around the world, number one, Europe is underwater, folks. Almost, I think it's 150 bodies they've counted so far. Right? There's sinkholes that are massive. I'm talking about bigger than houses, right? I'm not talking about like one little part of Europe. I'm talking about the majority of the countries in Europe are being flooded out. And people say, well, what about global warming? Absolutely. When the sea levels rise, you're going to have, and there's reports, there's videos, I don't know, you might have seen them, brother. There's videos on YouTube that talk about the lands that will be underwater in the next 20 to 30 years.
Yep. New
So
Orleans.
it's not unheard of.
Yeah, New Orleans, Maryland, I think part of, something.
New
Yeah,
Orleans,
there's a lot
parts
of
of
different.
Florida. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is 20 years is going to be underwater. So when you have these
Jersey.
global warming crises, when there's these meltdowns and the temperatures have been obviously higher, right, than normal. We've had droughts in the West Coast for a while. So these extremes, right, these are extreme weather patterns. Gandanta zones are extremes. They're not easy areas to navigate. And so when you see this, you'll see flooding. So yeah, okay, we could still say it and it would be true with Europe. That would be 100% true. But not only in Europe, right? In America, Alabama was reported with flooding
Right.
a couple days ago, January 20th, right? Arizona was reported with flooding, right? 2 days ago.
July 20th.
Now, July 20th, right? So, folks, it's right there. Now, those are cases that we can see, but China, Do you know that they have reported that within the last 4 days, 1 year of rain has fallen in China? That's crazy, right? 1 year of rain has accumulated and amassed within 4 days. That's serious. These people, there was a Providence, it's a Providence or a city that was about to be flooded. 71,000 people. I think 18 to 21 people have been reported dead so far. Right, 70,000 people. If the dam breaks or whatever the dam or levee breaks, 70,000 people are going to be washed out. So this is, not biblical, but definitely global as far as the torrential downpours and what people are witnessing with regards to this Gandanta zone being broken. And people say, why do you say that being broken? Because Mars is a planet that penetrates, it pierces, it punctures, it pushes through. See, Venus, when it went over, right? We had some, July 16th, there was some reports of flooding in Europe. But when Mars bust through, now we have all of the northern hemisphere in every major area, every major country, but major part of the particular northern hemisphere has been flooded. So consider, right? I mean, America, Europe, China, those are all major world powers, all been flooded. So this Gandanta zone is real. This is the time to take note so that when things happen in the future, you can always refer back to these little moments to say, you know what, I remember that happening. What's going to happen now? Is it a repeat? That's how we begin to learn from the past. That's how we use the past. And people will say, live in the now. That is the worst thing to tell someone. You live in the now while preparing for the future by analyzing and understanding the past. Man is a trifold being. He's body, mind, and spirit. Meaning we have the past, present, and future always at our disposal. So don't listen to these corny gurus talking about living in the now. That's the worst thing to take, because if animals live in the now, right? Man has the capacity to do all three, right? Easily. We're not this, monopolar childlike being. But nonetheless, I digress. Just as a side note, these times are very key and crucial to pay attention to, because what you're going to begin to see is patterns. As you study astrology over the years, you begin to see a repetition of things. You're going to see, right, next year, right? Won't be this type of flooding, but it will be similar, right, in other parts of the country. And also keep in mind that when we have summer, they have winter. When we have winter, they have summer. So watch what happens in our winter, right, down south, because they'll be hitting a Gandanta zone remember, in our winter, their summer. So I just want to make that side note to really kind of talk about the current events that are going on with regards to this flooding, because Mars does rule land, and landslides, right, is something that is happening in these countries. Landslides is literally Mars in Cancer, or Mars coming from a water sign to a fire sign, the release of energy, the release of that land, the moving of that land. So, this is a way that we begin to analyze and study and correlate those particular planetary placements on Earth. So with that, we're going to jump into the next subject. But I don't know, brother, do you have anything to say or kind of comment on what's going on?
No, just one thing I did want to point out is that if you guys are familiar with, I like to look at the transits sometimes on the circular chart or whatnot. This is the zone right here. You see Mars sitting right here, crossing that line between Cancer here and the Leo, whatnot, and it's sitting right here right now. This is real time right now or whatnot. Actually,
There
it's
it
a
is.
little. Yeah, that's real
Might
time.
be a
real
little
time.
right on, right.
Yeah.
So you see Mars is right there in that zone. He's right on, what's the degree? What's the degree of
Uh,
Mars? What, 1 degree?
1 degree,
0
9
degrees.
minutes. 1.
1 degree. Right. So just mindful that these last 4 days, 1 year of rain has fallen. That's a lot of water, folks. This is
Oh yeah.
China, right? Not one state, a country. 1 year's rain has fallen in 4 days. That's a that's let's put it this way: if it did that for 30 days, it would be biblical proportions. That's how much
Oh yeah.
water it is.
Oh yeah.
Right? If that happened for 30, let's say 10 days, even 10 days, that will be almost biblical proportions
Right.
because
And it's been
you're literally taking 1 year's of rain in 4 days. That's
yeah,
a lot of water.
it's been coming down over here in in Atlanta and different places. It's been raining pretty significant rain every day. Usually we'll get like a quick shower
Wow.
but this has been like hardcore rain. It's been coming down.
Yeah. I mean, we get a little bit here, but I'm more on the West Coast, so we're part of a drought kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So
We
we
have more
taking
of a
y'all
drought
rain.
kind of thing. Yeah,
we take
actually, that's what's happening, right?
yeah,
All
we
the rain
taking
we
it.
missed, all getting dumped on, and then Europe and China getting the rest of it, right? Right.
Yeah. All
So
right. So
because that jet stream it wraps around the world, you know.
exactly. So we have one person. So this is not a tropical chart. This is just a circular chart. It's not unique to
Right.
tropical. You could
Format is just circular, but the data is sidereal. Yeah.
indeed.
Because if you
Yep.
look at the planets, you see Mars at 1 degree. If it was actually Western, Mars would be at 25 degrees.
Right. Right. Indeed. Yeah, there's a
If you're looking
bunch of
at the
different
chart, right?
styles.
If you're looking at the sun would be basically, yeah. There's like 5 styles. You have northern, southern, eastern. There's another eastern, and then there's like 5, right? But the most in vogue one is the circular or there you go, right? Or the
North.
square chart, the southern or northern. That's the northern, right?
Yep. That's the
So,
south.
but yeah, that's definitely right on the money. That's south, right? That's another southern style. Yeah,
Indeed. Indeed.
yeah,
And
that's a
whatnot. But
southern
thanks.
style.
I'm
But
pretty sure you're
right
not the
there,
only
you can
person
see
that
Mars
think
is on
that.
the
So
cusp.
so thank you for putting that
Oh,
comment in.
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yep.
Yeah, good looking, Owani. Good looking. So you know, just study these, relate them to the southern hemisphere. When Mars goes into his Gandanta zone at the end of January, look at the southern hemisphere, right? If you see it in the southern hemisphere, there's a lot. And now it's not only rain and weather patterns, it can be murders, it can be mass events that go wrong, right? It's just depends on what's going on at the time. But you'll notice something of a nature where if there's a release, right, or there's an over torrential pour of things. You'll hear some people say that Gandanta zones are like drowning, right? It could be. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of flooding, it does. I mean, there have people that have been drowned. 100 and some odd people are drowned, had died from drowning. So
Mm-hmm.
I could say drowning is related to Gandanta zones, but it's really being more overwhelmed, right? Being taken over by something, being inundated, being um, bombarded, right? That's what Gandanta zones do, right? It's uncontrollable. It's unfathomable. It's like being on a cliff and jumping off, into the abyss. You're falling. It's a free fall, right? You can't control anything. It's like
Oh yeah.
skydiving without a parachute. You feel like I'm at the edge of a zone and I'm coming off of a cliff, falling into something that's bottomless. That's how it's overwhelming, right? It's too
Yeah.
much. It's almost
I could
too much to
I,
handle.
I could definitely attest to that.
You
Right.
got to
I
plan it
mean,
in.
yeah. I mean, because I mean, just feeling the Gandanta zone. I felt it. Just in general, like
Hmm.
just the way how things been moving around me, the different things that I've been doing and stuff
You
like
felt
that.
the break. Yeah.
Boom. You know,
Yeah, like
and
that
that's happened.
situation. Exactly. Exactly. That break, that release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You'll feel it. The transits are palpable. If you're paying attention, they're palpable. You
Right.
can feel them. You can sense what's going on if you're aware, right? You'll feel more proud right now. People will feel more empowered because Mars is in Leo, right? The pride
Yeah.
will come at a higher cost as well. And I can tell you firsthand, right? because I got some definite planets there. So yeah, the pride will come off. The ego will be boosted, right? You'll have more drive and ambition to exact your dreams and goals, right? So definitely you're gonna feel Mars and Leo, like you felt Mars in Cancer, that hair trigger energy, right? Being on hairs and standing on end, right? Being overly sensitive, being ready to respond emotionally, right? That's all Mars in Cancer. Mars is response, Cancer is emotion. So you know what I mean. You this will subdue it, right? A great deal, right? Mars is friends with Sun. Sun will be in Leo shortly, so that will
Hmm.
stabilize a lot of this martial energy. Jupiter is aspecting Mars, so this should calm it down a great deal. Right? Of course, it depends on your ascendant and what planet you have in your natal chart, but just in general speaking, right? Mars will be empowered, and usually, what happens when
Yeah,
Mars is in a planet of a sign of debilitation. It's like a renewal, you know.
right. Yeah, I'm welcoming
So,
this.
by all
This is
means, right, take
welcome
that.
energy for me.
Definitely, I think it is for all of us. Mars got his butt kicked in Cancer because he was opposition Saturn.
Oh yeah,
And that wasn't that's not fun, right?
I felt
It's
that
not
too,
fun
man. I'll
for
tell you
you. Those of
offline.
you that really, I know you did. I know you did. Right? Mars in that ascendant, debilitated, and then looking back with that restriction, that delay, yeah, definitely, definitely. But like I said, Mars is moving out, and definitely giving us some different momentum. But let's get deeper. Let's get into this whole thing we got going on today with
Yeah,
the person of the hour.
yeah, man, and I don't think many of our listeners, except for we got, like I said, we international. I mean, we got some Korean listeners and stuff, man. So definitely shout out to them and stuff like that, and different parts of the globe. They may be fans, of the person
Hmm.
of the hour or whatnot. But it's been in the news. A lot of different things going on in regards to this person. You know, very very interesting stuff, man. I mean, it's a very unique situation. And for those who didn't know, you didn't read the title. We're talking about Britney Spears, right? She's in this situation called a conservatorship, right? And it's essentially a situation that's usually applied to elderly people when they are, they might be senile, Alzheimer's, or different things like that, and they can't really handle their day-to-day affairs. But it's kind of rare to see that occur to someone who is younger, let alone a celebrity. So, a lot of people have been getting insight into exactly what Britney Spears has been going through for, I believe, the last 13 years, where she's pretty much been restricted in every way that you can think of, in her just day to day life and stuff like that. And I guess at this point, she said she's had enough. And when I see unique stories like that and stuff like that, and we got to pull the chart, and then see what's going on and stuff like that. So and indeed, this is an interesting chart. It's a lot of interesting things going on with Miss Britney Spears and this whole thing with family and different things like that or whatnot. So I got it pulled up right here. All right.
There she is, Virgo.
Yep.
Virgo ascendant with that Uttara Falguni
Shout out to
Nakshatra
Uttar
ascendant,
Falguni.
which they're usually the part of Virgo that is very forceful. They're not the typical Virgoan energy. So she's not the shy and reticent type that Virgos can produce. Virgos can
Right.
be more shy. Not always, right? But a lot of times they can be. Like, Ice Cube is a Virgo ascendant. And Cube is not a gregarious social person, right? He's not. He can get in front of the camera or on the microphone, but he's not a socialite, right? Most Virgos are very much to themselves, but Cube got some things that light his chart up to give him some martial disposition that brings him out of that woodwork. But for the most part, most Virgos can be considered more or less, more private and less socially adaptable. But for Ottara Falguni, that's not the case. Ottara Falguni is the part of Virgo that does have that ability to be out there in the limelight. They're community builders. Like they like making connections. They're good friends. So it's ruled by Aryaman, which is the god of friendship. So Ottara Falguni can easily be one of the part of Virgo that's in the limelight. It's ruled by the
Right.
sun, right? Uttara Falguni
Right.
is co-ruled by the sun, right? So the fame or being in a position of recognition is not something that they can't handle. So and you can see she's had a career, right, being in the limelight. So that's not something that's she can't handle. But right, there are. Let's make this disclaimer. Virgos can be sensitive, right, and that sensitivity is heightened, right? With placements like the moon and Mercury are in certain positions, that sensitivity becomes stronger. And so, you know, um, when you look back and you can see her, I mean, remember because we're gonna mention about this period coming up soon. She's gonna have, but the thing that we look at is number one, where is her ascendant lord? Right? That always a tell all, and it's in Scorpio, right, in the third house. This shows where she gets her courage from. The sun is there also combined or with Mercury, which also gives her a boost of confidence. And remember, she's Uttara Falguni, so that's going to be reassured by that Sun Mercury combination. It's almost like having a double Uttara Falguni in her chart. Sun Mercury combination, and then Mercury Sun as far as the ascendant ruler. So I'm just showing you the patterns of why someone would be in the limelight that's built like this. So she has courage, right? She has the ability to speak her mind. Mercury in the third with Sun. But it is Scorpio. And so Virgo, along with that Scorpion energy, can also be again sensitive.
Right.
Sensitive to environment, sensitive to people, sensitive to thoughts, sensitive to opinions of others, sensitive to your fans, sensitive to whatever it is that's in your realm. It sensitizes you to that. And so sensitivity is then kind of creates the borderline for mental changes or challenges. So the next thing we look at is the mental disposition, the mind. And her moon is in the fifth house, which does give some brilliance. Believe it or not, moon in the fifth house many times can make people pretty smart or intelligent, right? Because the fifth house is the house of intelligence. So, the mind goes there. But, they say a lot of times that people that are intelligent are borderline crazy, right? Really smart people are borderline. Not always true, but it's a statement. And that
Yeah.
moon in the fifth house again, it gives her the strength, right? The mental disposition to have a strong mind. Not in the sense of strong mind is insanity, but strong mind is doing what they want to do what they want to do. Right. Now,
Right.
she's her mind is made up. When it's made up, is made up. Right. She has a strong mind, but sensitive mind. I know it seems like it couldn't be both, but it is. Fifth house is the house of Purva Punya, past life credit. Now she's got two other planets there. We're gonna talk about that. But the moon being there just alone shows that it's pretty good past life credit. For the most part. Right? Now, the moon also is with a very peculiar combination. It's with Venus and it's with K2. That is where the stability is shifted. That is where the stability is undermined. because K2 is a planet that is not healthy to be contacting the mind. K2 is a planet that takes you out of reality instantly. And then Venus is there. Now, they're not within the degrees that will really be prominent to really be super effective, but it's there. It's enough. It's within 30 degrees. It's in the same sign. That is still considered a conjunction.
Right.
So, bar none, right? This is the pattern of someone that has some mental challenges, not crazy, mentally, sensitive to the point where they have to have someone care for them. Now, I'm not going to analyze the whole chart, but looking at it from what it is, right? We want to see when could this particular combination play out, right? We want to see when is it going to play out. Well, her first nut up, right? Or her first episode or first fallout was in 2008 when she shaved her hair. Now, maybe it was some things before that had happened and we didn't know.
That's what we saw. That's what everybody saw.
That's what we saw, right? And if you look, if you open up the Dasha sequence, you'll see that in 2008, she was in a Rahu Moon Dasha. Right there. See, the next Dasha is 2009. So between the two is 2008. And she's in a Rahu Moon Dasha. Dasha Bhukti, to be exact. So, as you have heard us talk about Rahu in the past, right? If you're in a Rahu Dasha, buckle up, right? Because it's a wild ride. You're riding the head of the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
And isn't it interesting that Rahu is in the sign of Cancer, which is the moon, which is ruled by the moon. Not only that, the moon is in the Rahu Ketu axis. And it's in the fifth house. And the fifth house is a house of intelligence. So if the third house, the fifth house, if those houses are affected, those are houses that can denote insanity or mental instability, being mentally challenged.
Right.
So, you can see that Rahu Moon Dasha is when the jump off began, right? That's when she really began to lose touch with reality. Right? Rahu helps that. Rahu is the planet that creates illusions of grandeur.
Yeah, Rahu's
so it's hard.
Trip.
This is a hard Yeah, Rahu's no joke. It's not an easy thing to deal with, folks. And those of you that are listening that know about Rahu, shout out in the chat if you know about Rahu. Because Rahu will rock your world.
It's a long ride on that dragon too.
It's a long ride. 18 years. And you can take that dragon can take you to space, right? And it can take you to the depths of dirt, right? It has range to do any and everything within its power. And so, you can see this person's on top of the world. I mean, Britney Spears was a household name. And I mean, and maybe not in many African American homes, but who she is.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Maybe gets pumped in my radio, right? But I tell you what, there was a time when I turned the radio on and she was on there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So she's had her time. She's had her notoriety. She's had her fame. She's had her walk in the sun. And she's still very prominent to some degree. She's not on the radio as much, but like we were talking about, she's in Vegas getting paid $500,000 a show. So, who needs radio when you get $500,000 to stand up in front of people, right?
I don't know if she's getting all of that. I was looking at it a little deeper, but she got opportunities. She's making money a different way now. You know what I mean? Not like off of new stuff, but she's like a legacy act at this point.
Right. got you, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's at the age where she's not the young pop star anymore, right?
No.
Um, but looking at this thing here and what's going on, you know, um, if I'm correct, her father was the one that was given conservatorship over her estate, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And recently, she was just reinstated by the conservatorship, not the government, not the law, right? Daddy basically said you're fit to drive again. Now she's in her what? I believe her 30s, right? Almost 40, right? Almost she's in her 30s,
She's
right? Oh,
40.
she's 40. She's in her 40s. She's
She's
40.
40.
Yeah, she's in her
Yep.
40s. 40. She's 40 this year. Yeah,
Yep.
she'll be 40 this year.
Shoot,
There's a
she's
40-year-old
39.
woman,
39. Yeah.
39, right? She'll be 40 this year. There's a 40-year-old, 39-year-old, 40-year-old woman that has to answer to her father. That is probably very demeaning in the public eye. If you're a star and you got to answer and beg your daddy to just go to drive, up the street, you know, that's fairly humiliating. It's fairly demeaning. But, I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor and I don't know what her condition was diagnosed as, nor do I even know if she has it. I've never heard of the condition, right? I know she was pronounced 5150. They did say she was 5150, and she was committed to some institutions to help her with her issue. But, I just wonder, I don't know. Crazy is different in different areas and different races. It, shaving your head off, that's something you just do, right? I mean, people do that all day. Sinead O'Connor shaved her. I mean, that just happens. But maybe the circumstances around her shit. I'm not sure. I didn't keep up on the kind of blow by blow type deal. But they
The
pronounced
pictures
her
look crazy.
5150. They admitted her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
pictures look
yeah.
crazy. It
I
wasn't
saw
like
some of the pictures.
she was
Yeah.
styling and profiling like I'm rocking it. It was like I've lost it.
Yeah, something wasn't right. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, but
I'm out of here.
she didn't do something like run out in the street butt naked. You know what I mean? Like that to me, or like sit on the balcony eating bonbons. It just there's other things you could have done to me that would warrant super crazy, but to each his own. But nonetheless, the father is the person that's over her estate, and
Mm,
if you look at the chart, right, you're gonna see how this thing is situated. So one of the things that you learn in this science is that for each ascendant, well, let's say for various types of ascendants, there are different houses that create what are called obstructions. And they're called Badak stanas. Bhadaka, Badaka or Badak. Stana just means house. So they're houses that create obstructions. And so for all cardinal ascendants, meaning for Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, the 11th house is a house that creates obstacles. For fixed ascendants, it's the ninth house. So for Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, the ninth house is what creates issues or obstructions, things that get in your way. Well, for mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, the seventh house is the house of obstruction, meaning that the mate is usually, or partners, or people that play the role of partner, or people that are in the position of giving you knowledge and understanding can be enemies, or not enemies in the sense of being against you, but obstruct you from doing the things that you feel like you want to do. Now, there's a way we use this so that we understand kind of who and what's doing the obstruction, and we find where Jupiter is placed. Well, if you take a look at Jupiter, Jupiter is placed in the second house. if you pay attention to the dasha, she's in a Jupiter dasha. So what does that mean? That means that this time of life, she feels obstructed. She feels that things are in her way. Well, where is it placed? It's in the second house. Who was given a conservatorship? Her family, specifically her father, but the family is governing her affairs, right? That feels obstruction. And not only it's who, which is family, but what is being obstructed, and that's her money. The second house is your savings, your bankroll. She can't get access to her money. We were just discussing, she has $2,000 she can spend per month. That's it.
That's deep. That's next level. That's poverty.
$2,000. That's below poverty. Not to say Britney Spears needs or wants for anything, but just consider you're a world renowned pop singer and you have over just a little over $2,000 in your pocket and you want to go and do you can't. I mean, the feeling of that is obstruction. The feeling of that is someone is in your way. So she made a comment that stated, because she was supposed to perform or is supposed to perform, and she stated that if she or her father continues as conservator, or he is in the position of her conservatorship, she is not going to perform. So you can see, right, there's, I don't want to say a Mexican standoff, but there are some things that are there to teach her some definite lessons, right, about mental stability, right, mental focus, mental discipline. That's part of what's going on here. And so we look at the chart in several ways. One of the things that we do is we make connections. We kind of tie things together, and that's called sambandha. Bandha means to lock, right? Sam means that was just similar. So you're locked into something similar, or you're tied into something similar, right? And so
Those yoga
right,
people out there who do yogic
bandha,
stretches,
yeah,
bandhas, Uddiyana bandha, Ulahara bandha, and those are locks.
Jalandhar bandha, right,
Same
right.
same meaning.
Udiala Jalandhara, those are banda means lock,
Yeah,
right? Like people talk about soulmates. There's no such thing, right? But you have what is called Renu Banda, right? Which are soul ties, right? Ties, banda, connections, locks, things that lock you with other people, right?
right.
So Jupiter is in the second house, right? We say, how does that father, Rod? I don't see daddy, right? Well, if you look, there's a connection. Whenever there's a planet placed in a sign, that other sign has a direct connection to the sign in which the planet is placed, because they're ruled by the same planet. So anytime something is in Libra, you can also say that Taurus has a connection. Well,
Yeah,
Taurus is the ninth house, which is the house of the father. So automatically we see that there is a connection when the Jupiter period hits, when the Jupiter Dasha scheme runs, the father becomes an enemy. The father becomes someone that is obstructing her, because that person plays the role and stands in that stead as the Barak, that person that's going to interrupt her. Not only that, Venus, which is what rules Jupiter, is what planet? It's with the
it's what
sun.
it's what. Yeah,
It's with the sun, right? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's with K2. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's
yeah,
with
with K
K2
two.
in the fifth house, right? It's with K2 in the fifth house, right? That fifth house is again mental stability. So right now,
It's right on
it's
K two.
driving her more crazy. It's right on K2. right? So it's driving her more nuts. She's going nuts because she feels so restricted. I mean, at a 40-year-old age, considering, mental health and issues, but normal people would feel a little awkward being someone that you can't do anything and you're a world famous star. It's just it's Jupiter is a planet that we would think is all benevolent, right? It's all good. And from where we look to her life, she doesn't have a care in the world. She doesn't have a want. She's not like she's in need or dire straits. But it's still uncomfortable is what I'm trying to show.
Well,
It's still not fun. It's still not all that.
yeah, but I guess another way you can look at it is like it's probably what she needed. You know what I'm saying? Like it really
Right.
it maybe she's perceiving it a particular way, but as far as her life in general, it probably is overall giving her a beneficial, outcome, because she at her state she probably would have blew through all her all
All
her
that
little
money would
money
have
by
been
now.
gone. All
Gone.
that money would have been gone. All that money would have been gone. Right? So it's bittersweet. It doesn't feel sweet to her because, it's your money. You didn't make the money, I did. But that mental stability, right? The mental ground in which she sits on is very shaky. I mean, if and go, and look at the picture. I mean, she's aging, folks. You know, we age every day. We don't trip, right? Because
Right.
we're not in the position of being in the limelight. But when you're in the limelight, every little crack, every little thing, it's noticeable. And sorry, folks, black just don't crack like that, right? It doesn't. So, when you're of that persuasion, you age a little faster, right? And your youth leaves a little faster. And so we were talking about, what happens, what's going to happen, what's the future look like for her, and she has a very large catalog. I was just reviewing it. She's a pretty big catalog. So it's not like she'll be broke. I mean, it has happened, but if everything's done properly and they manage her money right, she should be well into old age with money,
Right.
well into her old age with resources. But the phase of the hot young little white girl, the hot pop singer, that's done. That's done. Her last album, what we were calling, she's got some singles, but her last real album was in 2016. So, I'm not going to say she's going to fade into obscurity, but she'll be one of those kind of, oh yeah, yeah, where's she been? That kind, fading into the back of the public mind, and not really having that limelight in that spotlight. Saturn is the next dasha that she goes into, and we look at Saturn from number one, the ascendant, and it's Virgo. Saturn is a bittersweet planet for Virgo. It rules the fifth house, which is a very beneficial and positive house, but it also rules a Trika house, which is a very challenging house. So it's kind of like bittersweet in a way, right? Um, I'm going to say a little bit sweeter than more bitter, because Saturn does have affinity and friendship with Virgo. And these are rules you'll learn in level 2, right, of the astrology fundamentals course that I teach, right? Level 2, we go through and we explain and go through each planet with each particular ascendant. And Saturn for Virgo is literally, it rules one of the best houses, and it rules a somewhat challenging house, right? But when you look at the scheme, right, the fifth house is the second strongest, and then the sixth house is the second strongest trika. So, like I said, it's like a half and half deal, a little towards the sweet side, because again, Saturn is just friendly to Virgo. But nonetheless, Saturn is a planet that is not all that. It does age, obviously, and she's going to age rapidly, right? Saturn's in the ascendant, so that means that when Saturn begins to turn on, aging it that happens quick, right? It's like, shoo, right? Gosh, like she looks 70, right? So this is some of the things that you're gonna see when Saturn Dasha hits, and this is she's got a ways away. I think it's 2026 if I'm correct, right? Yeah, she's got
Yeah.
about 5 years left of the Dasha. But during these 5 years, Saturn gains in strength and Jupiter wanes. So as Jupiter wanes, right, the obstructions will probably diminish. But then Saturn is the planet of what? Obstruction, right?
Obstruction.
Of restriction, right? But it is in the ascendant. So that's a healthy position, right? It's not in a challenge position. It's in Shitra Nakshatra. It's not Shitra Nakshatra is not one of the worst nakshatras for it, but again, it's not it's kind of like a 50-50 type deal.
Hmm.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Kind of it's up to you. When it's 50-50, it's kind of up to you. What are you going to do with my energy? Are you going to be fearful? Are you going to sit around and be angry and think about the past? Or are you going to be productive and constructive and build towards the future? Or are you going to say, well, maybe my day is past and that, but I have another day of doing this? Saturn still gives you opportunities to make healthy, strong, important impacts on your karma and other people's lives. So that will take place, and she will literally um, become less prominent, become less of a visual figure. But she probably will be released from the conservatorship. That's more than likely what will happen, because Saturn will then be the planet of responsibility. So
Right.
it's twofold, right? Even though it does have its delays and denial, not delays, not denial. Saturn doesn't deny, it delays. They have their delays and they have their restrictions, but that teaches them how to manage. It teaches them how to guide and to plan and to look down the line as far as the future is concerned. So it would be that when this Saturn Dasha hits, she more than likely will get full control over her life again. But by that time, well, how much damage could you really do? I mean, you're almost in your 50s.
Yeah, you
So,
can't. I mean, you're
this
gonna
is,
get clowned for trying to be out here trying to be a
yeah,
young,
it's not,
young
that's,
50-year
yeah,
old
that's,
in the club.
and now you can see it. It hasn't hit all the way yet that you're 40, right? And 40 is not
Hmm.
the new 30. Sorry, right? Not in the music industry, right? Maybe in the streets, but in the music industry, 40 is the 40 is
Maybe
the
for
new
a
80,
guy.
right?
Maybe for a guy.
Right. 40 is the
You
new
know.
80, right?
Yeah.
It's right. It goes the other way, right? When you're in the industry, right? Right. When you're a guy, you might be able to that longevity but if you're a hot woman and beauty and all that's your thing and youth is your thing and pop is your thing, a 50-year-old pop star is not that popular, right? A 40-year-old
Nah.
pop star is not that popular, right? Yeah, it's pop, right?
Unless you're share or
As
something
in
like
kids,
that.
as in child. Right, right. So, we can kind of see, where things are headed. We haven't mentioned any transits, right? No need
No.
to, but easily seen, right? K2 is over that Mercury and Sun, those Mercury and Sun, and K2 is over her third house of taking action,
Yeah. What you
right?
what
It's the third
one
house of driving.
one transit I do want to mention, we kind of briefly talked about it, was it's interesting that this is kind of coming out when the full moon is going to be in Shravana, right here in her,
Right there on her moon,
or her moon or
right?
whatnot,
And
a little something.
that moon degree, literally, right? It's called the degree of changes, and it says the symbol is a silver haired garment lying in the mud Overhand are the dark clouds of an approaching storm. It denotes one whose fate is greatly influenced by the acts of others. Wow. And whose life is blended with the hopes and ambitions of the many. He will or she will have trials and temptations and can only defend herself and her honor by firmly refusing to be drawn into the affairs of an unworthy nature. This is another interesting degree area. It has to do with limitations, it has to do with illness, circumstances, poverty, or possessive parents. But for whatever reasons, the native is prevented or hindered from developing freely. Wow. That is the exact degree of her moon. At 18 degrees Capricorn, that's what it produces. And it's the mind, the moon that's there, which reinforces the mental instability. Right? That's crazy. When I read that degree, I said, wow, how accurate is this? Right? To be on that moon and to reveal that that moon produces parents that are restrictive and controlling. Not to say it was bad, because sometimes you need that control. But again, it's there.
Right.
So this is destiny for her. Her mind has to experience these karmic recompenses so that she can gain mental understanding about having sound mind and body. You know, it's crazy how these planets are placed at these exact degrees. You know, every show I try to include a degree. If you've noticed, I've been doing it for the past shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
I try to include a degree to show you that the specifics of something is inside of the degrees as well, meaning the signs, the nakshatras, the padas, but not only the padas, but the degrees tell a great deal about a person's destiny. So if you have a chance, get yourself a hand on this book right here, right? It's
I'm gonna tell
definitely
you now,
one that you won't miss.
you're gonna have a hard time trying to find that book. You're
Right,
gonna have
here's
a
the book
hard time
for
trying
you.
to find it.
Right, I found it many, many moons ago, right, and it has served me well. So definitely, if you get it, let us know because we want to know where it is so we can get a copy. Because one copy, I usually have two, and my partner here needs one, so we need to get a hold of this. If you find it, let us know. We definitely will. We'll grab some if they're available.
Yeah,
But
it's been out of print for a
with
little
that being
grip.
said, yeah, it has. And then they come back. You just have to
Mm-hmm.
sometimes be patient. Sometimes they don't come back, right? But a lot of times they do, and a lot of times they even come back and they added materials. But definitely keep your eye out for that book. The author is MC Jain. Um, it's a Vedic astrology degree book. So you want to look like in the Eastern side of things, right? As far as your websites and stuff, you might be able to find it in a nook and cranny somewhere.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think we definitely did this one real justice in showing the connections and the points, not only in the floods right around the world that we're seeing, but also in a chart of a young lady, or was a young lady that had some mental illnesses and is slowly recovering and trying to gain some normalcy. So I think we've done both of them pretty good, a pretty good analysis.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So, as always, with that being said, this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people on Patreon. And shout out to everybody that's hanging with us, early morning or whatnot out here on the chat and everything like that, man. Big up to y'all. Big shout out to y'all and stuff like that, man. And, think we got a good episode in the bag or whatnot, Rob, before we get out of here, you had anything you wanted to add to people?
No, nope. Just same time, same channel. We're looking forward to the next episode.
Indeed, indeed. And, make sure you check out the other podcasts in the Push It Forward Podcast Network or whatnot as well. You can get to that from our Instagram, Push It Forward at PUSHITFWD. and you can, there's links to all those different shows and stuff like that. Interesting stuff going on, and we got more stuff to come. So stay tuned.
Excellent shows, great topics, definitely things that are pertinent, relevant, right? You're definitely talking about things that make you think and say, you know what, that's something that I didn't consider or that I did consider. Especially the one where does veganism make you spiritual? That's a really good podcast. Definitely something to consider if you're thinking that diet, what goes in your mouth, necessarily affects what comes out. So
Indeed.
tune into those. Tune into those. They're definitely ones that are thought provoking, and a lot of us can relate to trying to live in certain lifestyles and mindsets.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back next week, same place, another great episode. We're out. Peace.
Peace.